Yo Yo Sailors, or should I be saying ahoy? It's your co-captain Zoeya.
And your co-captain Divya.
And today we're here to talk to you about something pretty crucial to our campaign. Perhaps you guys might not know what we're talking about, which is pretty bad, but don't worry, because let's do a little drum roll and announce it. Drum roll, please!
Burnout!
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about burnout. It's a very crucial aspect when we're talking about our campaign, but also just mental health in general, especially in our age group. So we're going to be talking about what really is burnout, what are the causes and the effects of it, what can it look like a little bit, and then just talk about our goal with this podcast. I mean, you guys might be wondering, what is this new setting? You're actually seeing Zoeya and Divya's faces. Wow.
Yeah, so, why are we making a burnout podcast? Well, our campaign is about, like Zoeya said, mental health awareness, promotion. And so a really important part of keeping our minds healthy is avoiding burnout, that gradual build of stress, which we'll get to in a second. But it's just important to understand that, burnout is kind of like that final point from the stress. But after burnout, tons of mental health conditions can just stem from that, like depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And we want to avoid those, right? Because it's really damaging for our mental health. And we want to make sure that our minds are healthy, our bodies are healthy, everything.
Yeah, and I think to just kind of finish off with that definition of burnout, I would really like to just use a graph here for an example. I know not all of us are fans of math. I certainly am not. But yeah, think of your y-axis, that is your level of stress, and your x is time. So you'd have this exponential graph, and eventually it's going to stop, at this straight line eventually, right? And that straight line there is what I would say is that peak point. It's burnout. Burnout is really essentially this response to a prolonged amount of stress that can come from a multiple of things. And I think especially it can look a lot like just not wanting to do anything. Think about it like this. You have this ship. You have a ship vessel, right? In your ship, correct? And you're running off this fuel. Fuel, carrying you throughout your entire journey. But then eventually you kind of just are unable to navigate through those rough currents, those rough waters and everything. And that, I would say, is burnout. You just sort of lose your fuel.
Yeah, you lose your passion, your motivation, your inspiration, or all you can focus on is your work, your source of stress, which sounds crazy, right? Like, if this source of stress is what's causing me to burn out, why would I continue focusing on that source of stress? But that's kind of just how our minds work, Like, if I have a homework assignment and, I'm doing it and I'm feeling super stressed, that's not burnout, right? That's just stress, because burnout is that gradual build of stress, that exponential graph that Zoeya showed you guys. And so, one homework assignment won't be burnout, but if it's homework assignments every single day that's causing me a lot of stress, on top of the extracurriculars I'm doing or the side activities I'm doing, like tennis, soccer, sports, all of that stress is what eventually leads up to burnout. And once we reach burnout, we might just continue focusing on our homework, like, oh my God, I have to get this done, right? I have to make sure I meet people's expectations, go above and beyond. I want to get into that college. And I know it might sound like I'm kind of rambling here, but that's kind of what our minds go through when we're experiencing burnout. Either we just focus on what's causing our stress, or we can't focus on anything at all. We're so tired, we're so overwhelmed, and we don't have the motivation to do anything.
Yeah, and I think another really important thing to talk about is when we think about burnout and really understand that the main point of today's episode is to identify that and look into it. I think a lot of people struggle to identify because they have this mindset that my entire life I've been this gifted child. I've been getting A's in all my classes. I mean, you passed Algebra 2 with like a friggin' 100% or something, right? And yeah, that's great and all, but as we grow older and older, we will find challenges, we will find changes in our lives, and really, I think you need to understand here that it's okay to feel burnout. It's okay to experience it. That doesn't mean that you're any less smarter. That doesn't mean that you're any less weaker. It's sort of just, as we said, a prolonged amount of stress that's being built up. That's a response to it. So it's just a response. It's not telling you anything about yourself. As we said, you can recover from it. There are ways that you can improve. There are ways that you can change your lifestyle to really accommodate to your stress. So don't worry. Just sit back and relax.
Yeah. Normalize that recognition, right? Like, we want to normalize recognition, but we don't want to normalize stress itself, right? Our goal in life is to be stress-free. Like, what a wonder that would be, And unfortunately, that's really difficult, right? Because there's so many sources of stress, that stress that leads to burnout, like academic stress. Oh, I have to get these extracurriculars in. I have to do AP classes, or if you're not an academic student, maybe it's your social life stress, maybe you're feeling isolated, you don't really have a solid group of friends, and you feel this urge that you need to fit in, that you need to meet like those social norms. And that's also another source of stress that's, just constantly building on top of one another. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's work life stress. I mean, neither of us have a job. We're unemployed. But, maybe some of you guys have jobs, and maybe it's really hard to juggle working and also getting your homework done on time or hanging out with your friends. All of that, kind of layered stress just builds up until you're at that final breaking point, and that's when you experience burnout. And that's kind of when you notice the lack of motivation you have, the inspiration, you don't have any passion left.
Yeah. And adding on to that, when we're thinking about like all the different lives we have, you have to accommodate to your social life, you have to accommodate to your academic life, some of you your work life, or maybe even your like familial life and all of that. We understand that everyone has their own responsibilities, and especially with our campaign, what we aim to talk about is sort of that sinking combination of that imbalance and the lack of boundaries. Our brains tend to not possess this sort of switch off, or they don't know when to find their mind harbor. See what I did there? But yeah, I feel like we are just always at this constant high in our stress levels, and we don't really ever know when to stop. And sometimes it's like 99% of your time is just consumed with your academics or something. Like maybe 50% of that 99% is like you studying and doing stuff. Then like 30% is your familiar, and like the rest is just like you like taking care of your social life, hanging out with your friends and everything. And we understand, at this day and age, at this time where everyone is obsessed with being an academic weapon, everyone is possessed with being the it girl, being him, being her, and everything, there is that feeling sometimes. And we really want to just say that it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. And yeah, setting boundaries is really important. I mean, we did like a whole post on that. Yeah, boundaries are important. Boundaries are important because it leads to balance. And that means balance across all of the components of your life. I understand we talk about academic stress a lot because that's personally what we go through, and we like to keep it real with you guys.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes we don't really experience social life stress or work life stress because, like we said, we don't have jobs. But, some of you guys are probably going through that, and we don't want to make you feel like your source of stress isn't as important as academic stress.
Yeah, never. Not around here, partner.
Because for some of us, academics is just not a primary source of stress. Maybe we don't really care about academics, or it's just not one of our primary focuses in life. Regardless, no matter what's going on, you have to find balance between all of those components. So if academics is not a struggle, but social life is, work life is, or anything else you got going on, setting your boundaries, having those boundaries between those different components of your life, that's what leads to that balance. And balance can help you prevent burnout.
Okay, Deshpande, do you think it's time that we wrap this whole little voyage up?
I think it's time.
Yeah, so I just want to take the time to say that when you watch this podcast and as we go into this series, I mean, we're still getting the quirks of everything and all of that. I mean, currently we're literally sitting right in front of Divya's TV and sitting on her carpet. So understand that this is just sort of one-on-one. Treat us as your friends, okay? Like, yes, we're the co-captains, but you're just as much as important as us in this little relationship here, okay? And posts for us, we love them. We look forward to doing them every day. We look forward to adding all the little fun graphics that we know you guys enjoy. But also, it's that sometimes you guys don't get to see us and you don't get to see why we are talking about these things. So we want you guys to get a better understanding of us. I mean, here at Mind Harbor, we truly view ourselves as a community effort. We view that the efforts of our supporters who are constantly helping us, constantly giving us suggestions, we view that as well as us, a collective effort. So if you ever have any suggestions, you ever have any things that you think we should talk about, please do let us know. Always feel free to reach out to us at Mind Harbor MHP on Instagram, and stay tuned for some more ways to contact us.
Yeah. Okay, and just to wrap this up, want to end off with some key takeaways?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So number one, burnout is not stress. Stress is a factor that leads to burnout. Burnout is that chronic stress that builds up over time. Number two, right? Avoiding burnout means setting up those boundaries, finding the balance between the different components in your life, because we all have tons and tons of sources of stress, right? There isn't like one pinpoint source of stress, and it can take some time to recognize that and identify where your stress is coming from And once you do that, it's easier to prevent burnout. And then number 3, the way I like to think about this with a little nautical analogy, you have your ship, you expend all of your fuel and you're stuck on the same path. And that path is towards burnout.
Ooh.
But if you manage your fuel, kind of like sanction it out, you can go on different paths, have more fun voyage, a more fun experience, because you're not wasting all of your energy on one thing, You're setting that boundaries. You're setting those boundaries, sanctioning out your fuel. And so it's easier to avoid that path towards burnout.
And I think, we kind of are done here today. But just one more thing, we're going to get into a quick short segment involving some of our favorite creatures. Maybe you guys might even recognize some of them. But yeah, and I think as we go into this new segment in this video, I think it's really important to understand that we just want to tell you guys, acknowledge burnout, okay? Admit it, it's okay, identify it. Remember, a big thing in mental health is to say that you need help. So really, don't feel afraid. Don't feel like you're any less than you were before. I promise you, you're not. That's not how it works here. But yeah, this is Mind Harbor. We're a safe space. We don't encourage any of that.
Yeah.
We're just here to tell you that identify. That's the best way to say it. Identify, acknowledge, recognize, whichever synonym you want to use. That's it. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Any other words? Yeah.
I think I'm done here.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you guys, and on to the next segment. Okay, so here's a little segment with a creature that I'm sure you all are going to adore, the burnt out bunny. So the burnt out bunny lives on a farm and likes to grow carrots. This burnt out bunny, she starts the year by growing and harvesting 1 carrot a day because she's tiny, you guys can see, and she can't really carry that much at one time. But over the course of the next couple of days, there are too many carrots that grow all at once, and if she doesn't harvest them all in time, the rats will eat them. So then this little bunny has to carry more and more carrots each day until she can't handle it anymore. This is an example of physical exhaustion, where physical stress is building up over time until eventually the bunny experiences burnout. Hence, this is the burnt out bunny. Now she can't grow any more carrots, let alone harvest them. This was Doc Talks from Mind Harbor, Episode 1, brought to you by Zoeya, Abbas
and Divya Deshpande.